Hi. So, I wanted to tell you about my big dream of the Gardens of Love. Um, so, I always kept it a bit short because there is so much to it. And it all started with, I guess. So, I've been working in the Orchards Biodynamic Farm that I started together with Stein, my now ex. And while biodynamics is really good in many ways, it's organic plus spiritual aspect, um, it's missing some things. And that's not the whole philosophy behind it, which I am 100% behind. And it's really my philosophy very much, which is, everything is part of a whole of creation, and we have a responsibility to the earth and the plants and the animals because they are part of us in a way. Um, and so, in biodynamic farming, we work to enliven the soil so that it can go to its new evolution, just as we are. And the plants, we help them develop a bit more of a soul kind of thing, which is something animals already have, and we help animals develop their it's much nicer in Dutch because we say our I forces as in I am. But so it's like personality, but the higher kind of higher self. Um, and then of course as people we work towards the next step as well. So that's biodynamics, and that's really beautiful. And of course, it's good what we do to nourish the soil with compost and manure, and to have all the different elements on the farm. But what we haven't developed, and which I really, really saw, it's the traditional way that we've been doing things for centuries, which is you have big fields with one kind of crop. You have in our orchards rows and rows and rows of the same variety of apples with some pollinators of a different variety in between. But what you have to realize is that every tree of the same variety is basically a cutting of one tree. Um, and so it's like there is like clones of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of Noors all standing there. And what I've learned is that trees and plants, they communicate through their roots, right? So imagine that you have a whole field of Noor and they're all talking to each other, but we're all the same, so we're not going to really inspire each other. Um, but also, just anyway, if you have big field with only one type of crop, you are going to invite pests in and disease. They can just spread to the whole thing. Um, yeah, so that's a big problem, and when it comes to pests in the orchard, because it's a perennial crop that stays for years, we have quite a nice balance. We might get a few aphids here and there, but then there is the ladybirds and the other birds and whatever all coming in to take care of it. So it's never a real big problem. Also, with like caterpillars and stuff, and there is a balance. And we have chickens laying hens walking under the tree so that any kind of insects that go into apples and then like little apples that are still growing and then fall down get eaten up by the chickens so they don't become a big problem. But what we did see a lot of is disease, fungus disease mostly. So we have scab, which is on the trees, on the leaves. It forms like gray spots, and then they get black spots, and then that leaf can't really photosynthesize so much, so it just falls down, and that's of course not so great for your fruit. But then also it goes on the fruit, which makes the skin hard and cracked and not nice to eat. and we can't really sell that. So then we spray stuff against it. We're basically fighting it. And there is also this disease, canker, which some of you may have heard me complain about in autumn and so on, because I've been walking through this new block of trees again and again and again, trying to cut that out because it goes in the wood, and if you leave it, it just kills the tree because it just eats up, like shrinks in, and the whole trunk, or the whole, it starts with a branch sometimes, but especially with young trees, which these were, it goes in straight into the trunk, and then it just eats it all up, and everything above that spot just dies, which of course, takes out a lot of trees. And that again is a fungus, and it came in because the block next to it, which was older, had a lot of it. And Stein was hoping that with spraying copper, which kills fungi, and some things like that against it, it might help. And if we just went through it, but yeah, I just saw it coming again and again and again, and it's just obviously a big problem. So 10 years ago, when Stein and I broke up, because I was ill, because I was super tired, because we had tons and tons of stress, both about too much work in the orchard, but also very much about financial things with the orchards. It was just really stressful. So we stopped talking to each other properly, because every time we did talk, it was about the business and all the stress. So we would just end up in shouting. Which all of that together really gave me some pause. So when we broke up, I was on my own, well, with 3 kids most of the time, and one of them was only just one, my youngest. And I was wondering, well, what is it that I'm going to do? And I really, really love some of the aspects of the orchards. I love that it's trees, and I love being outside. But obviously, I don't want to have this situation ever again, that I have so much stress, because it's just not healthy. And over the years, I realized that, every time we try and make things efficient, as in easier to harvest because you got long rows of the same thing, all the same variety, because again, it's easier. Every time you try and make things efficient, you lose something, and it's mind numbing, I have to say, to do the same thing over and over and over. For us,